Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. My name's Phil Doherty, and in this podcast series, I will be interviewing investors, advisors, entrepreneurs, recruiters, directors, basically anybody within agency recruitment who has a great story to tell, and they could be based all over the world. And we're going to be discussing how to set up, operate, and scale a world-class recruitment company. Today's guest is Mayet. He is a director at Westbourne Partners, and he's got a great story. So he's been in recruitment for over 18 years, and he had a few jobs in his to start out, and then he set up a business. He had that business for around 11 years with a business partner. He bought out a business partner during the process, got acquired by James Caan's company. So we discussed a little bit about that. And then he went and chilled out on a beach in Mexico for a little bit, and until he decided to go back and become a director of a recruitment firm. And he's kind of in charge of scaling that business out and working with banks all over the world. Great guest, and really appreciate him coming on the podcast. I actually just flicked out a message. He says no problem, and we just jumped on the phone and did it. So I don't really know him, got to know him during this, and yeah, what a great guy. Okay, over to Mo.
Hello.
Hello there, Mo. How are you today? Hello there, Mo. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Hi, how are you, Delta?
I'm very good. Welcome to Recruiter Startup Podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
And having on very short notice, I had a couple of cancellations today, and I reached out to you, and you put up your hand like a true hero.
Well, always here to help when I can. Always here to help.
Good man. Okay. Well, I appreciate you probably haven't heard the podcast. So how it normally starts is you let us know how you managed to get into this weird and wonderful world of agency recruitment.
Well, I like to think a wonderful world of recruitment is my view on it. But yeah, so my journey started many moons ago now. I started with a company called Mark Satin, which was still run by David Satin back then. And I started on what was the part qualified accountancy recruitment permanent desk. Wow, that seems like a long time ago now.
18 years ago, right?
18 years ago, that's right. Thanks for reminding me, Walter. 18 years younger I was. And it was by chance. I never thought about a career in recruitment, like many people at the time, I believe. I fell into it through word of mouth and people recommending different career areas for me. I interviewed with 3 different firms. I remember at the time they were Hayes, who are still around, obviously, Accountancy Editions, who I don't think are around anymore, and Mark Satin. And looking back on it, I was either brilliant at it or by luck I happened to choose Mark Satin, which set me on my career path that I followed ever since.
And so you did a couple of years, or just over a couple of years in that first recruitment business. What was Mark Satin like back then? Was it like quite a consultative business, or was it more of the S3 nature, or how would you describe it?
No, it was very different to an S3. It was a very concentrated business in terms of accountancy recruitment into mainly commerce and industry. A little bit of financial services, but mainly commerce and industry, and generally split across part qualified and qualified accountants across permanent and interim positions in the southeast of England. And that was it. So it was a very concentrated business at the time.
And you've had a couple of other similar positions. with Hudson and McGregor Boyle. Was there any key differences in the way that those businesses operated?
Oh, absolutely. So Hudson was TMP when I first joined them. They separated Monster and the recruitment arm to create Monster and Hudson. But they were a giant recruitment company. I believe they were the fifth largest recruitment company in the world when I joined them. So a totally different business model to Mark Satin. My head was turned to join them at the time because they convinced me at the time that big billers sit at the large firms. And I very, very, very quickly realized that was absolutely not true. Much bigger billers sat at Mark Satin than at TMP or Hudson, as they're called now.
And I suppose at the time, you probably didn't have the experience to dive into the numbers in the way that
you
would if you had.
Yeah, I wish I had done. David Satin spoke to me about it a lot during my exit interview, I suppose. And David was has been a very influential figure for me in my career because I started with him. And he, to be fair to him, he said, maybe I think you've got to go to see rather than anyone to tell you. And I think he was right on that basis. I did have to go and see, but I very quickly realized that was the case. But I stayed for a year just because I believed jumping ship again too quickly would have been a bad move on my part.
But you did jump ship after a year.
Yes.
And what was McGregor Boyle like? What are they like as a business?
So McGregor Boyle is an excellent business. It's run by Laurie Boyle, who hired me, and they had always done IT into financial services. That was in essence their business, and they did very, very well at it. But he wanted to do finance into financial services. I believe he tried it a couple of times and it hadn't worked. And he asked me to join and set up the finance desk for them at McGregor Boyle. So it was an interesting challenge.
So no database.
No database. So
oh, no.
I was promised a database in terms of clients, but as we all know, every client we rang, they said, "Well, you're on the IT PSL, but you're not on the finance one."
Oh no.
So that wasn't easy, but fortunately, we actually did very, very well there. I had a great time at McGregor Boyle. They're an excellent business, and that was my first stint into recruitment into banks. I'd never done it before McGregor Boyle, so it started off a new career venture for me, if you like.
And so, at this stage, you are 4 years in. Has the penny dropped? Have you got good at recruitment at this stage, do you think?
I believe people get good at recruitment fairly quickly. I think it's what you make of it at that point. So I look at recruitment as any other business. It's a relationship building business and nothing more complicated than that. And what I had been either fortunate on or very good on was building very good relationships with clients from a very early stage at Mark Satin. And these clients were very loyal to me.
Is that from like wining and dining, or is it from delivering results, or a mixture of both, or what's your kind of process there?
So I firmly believe you build good relationships with clients through delivery. So I can wine and dine them every day of the week if I want. If I don't deliver to them, they're not a client. They're people I go out with, which is a very, very different setup, I believe. So it's a combination of the two, but in essence, what clients want is delivery, and no false promises. So I only promise I can deliver to a client if I can. If I can't, I instruct them to use somebody else. And a lot of them tell me most people don't do that. They'll always say they can do it, and then they disappear 3 or 4 weeks later. That's one thing my clients have never had from me. If I say I will do it, I will get the job done. Or I'll be honest and say I can't. And they appreciate that because I think they find a lot of people over-promise and under-deliver. I'm more of a believer in under-promising and over-delivering.
And you're now at a stage where you thought you'd gamble and set up by yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Well, yeah, it was a funny time of life for me because
set the scene for us.
Yeah, I I just got married. I had just bought my first house. I was about to have my first child.
Marriage, babies, mortgage,
yes,
and
all
you're
of the
thinking
things.
all at the same time, yeah.
And so I got advice from some people, and everyone advised me not to do it. Everyone said don't do it. The timing is not good. They believe I need more years of experience before I did it. And I was at that young age where the more people told me not to do it, I became a little bit more determined to do it. And to be fair to my wife at the time, I'm divorced now. She fully supported me, which was very, very helpful. And I did it a little bit. I suppose I had the freedom of, if it didn't work for me, I could always get a job somewhere. It wasn't a case of I couldn't get a job. I could get a job with most agencies, I like to think.
So let me bring you back to it then. So you're in London. You have all these responsibilities. What's your plan? What was your vision then of what your recruitment company was going to look like?
So at the time when I first set out to do it, it was going to be very, very focused on middle office recruitment for banks in London.
What's middle office for anybody that's not an FS recruiter?
So middle office recruitment. So banks are set up across 3 different areas, which is front, middle, and back office in essence. Front offices are only revenue makers, so you hear of traders, corporate financiers, that type of thing. The middle office are the people that directly support the front office, so they could be your accounting, your risk management, what they call product control, which does your P&L accounts for the traders every day. So it's direct support to that front office revenue stream of banks.
Okay, so and you were focusing on the middle point.
We were specifically going to focus on middle office recruitment because that's what I'd done, and I knew I had a client base in that area that I could work with immediately, and I had clients that would work with me immediately. So we were very, very focused on doing that.
When you say we, was it just you? Was there somebody else that went into business with you?
No. So I set up my business initially with the Ingram part of Ingram Mayet, and we'd worked together previously at Mark Satin, and then we'd gone separate ways. So we got back together, and devised a business plan which didn't have a lot on it. In all fairness. I think if I looked at that business plan today, I would laugh at it. So
to survive before you had to make your placement and get paid on it.
Well, we were very, very fortunate. So I managed to get a retainer from a client in our first week of trading as a business.
Oh, so, what a dream. What a dream.
which I wasn't expecting. So myself and my business partner, we actually put quite a fair amount of money into the business because we thought we wouldn't get any revenue in for 4 or 5 months at all. So the retainer was, heaven sent, quite frankly, and it really helped us get us on our way.
And what were those early days like? Must have been a busy time because we're talking pre the recession. So the banks were just going from strength to strength to strength, and you're in the middle of that. Was it just the two of you? Did you hire people? What take us back to that point?
So look, when I say about lack of planning, I remember walking. So we took out some office space on London Wall. We wanted to be based in the city, and we had a fair amount of cash behind us. So we took out, but it was really rolling up your sleeves. I remember getting into the office and both of us realizing, we have to order PCs. They don't come with the office. We'd always worked for established recruitment companies before, and we were given a PC and a phone and. So, it really was going back to the drawing board and a real crash course on setting up a business. So we did hire staff to come and work for us. Absolutely. The plan was never for it to just be myself and him. And we got to work, and it was very, very busy, but it was very fruitful times in the industry. Banks were hiring like crazy. So it was very, very good times for us. To fast forward a little bit, myself and my business partner parted ways just over 2 years into the business. We had slightly different ideas on where the business should go and what it was doing. We parted very amicably, so I bought him out of the business at the end of 2006. And then I ran the business on my own, and we went on a hiring spree early 2007, believing, as all recruiters do, the world will keep going and banks will keep growing.
Your partner had a good end of this deal, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. So, but 2007 was great actually. So the year after I bought him out, the year was good. I remember right up till August 2008, we were doing a tremendous amount of business, and we'd started to branch out by this stage. So in 2007, I hired a front office recruiter, trading recruitment, which went very, very well for us. We started expanding to cover roles in the Middle East, in Dubai. And I specifically remember we'd been out to an office in Dubai. We'd found premises which we had to purchase at the time, so we had a fair amount of cash put aside for it. And luckily for me, I didn't sign on the dotted line on the Friday, because on the Monday when I came to work, Lehman Brothers had collapsed.
Walk me through that day.
That was the nightmare of all nightmares. So to give you some idea, our two largest clients at the time were BP and JP Morgan, and I'm talking BP's trading arm, BPIST. And I remember walking in and clients calling in with all the jobs that we had on were now off. Contractors that we had out working for us were all of a sudden out of work. So the landscape of the business from a Friday to a Monday.
Oh my God! How many people did you have working?
It could not have changed more. So at that time, we had around 25 people working.
Oh my God!
And
were you keeping a brave face on it that day, or?
I was keeping a brave face, but we had a firm of accountants we started with back in 2004, who actually took us on as a favor. They normally did accounting for 500 million turnover plus businesses, and he became very much a business advisor to us rather than just an accountant. And on the Monday, I went into a meeting with Bob immediately, and we put together a plan. So Dubai office was off first and foremost. That was canned, and the cash we'd put aside in the office actually became our savior, which meant we didn't go out of business in the following 2 years, because if we had purchased that office in Dubai, I honestly believe Ingram Mayet would have been bankrupt in end of 2008, early 2009, and there's not much we could have done to change it. So fortunately, someone was looking down on me, smiling, I imagine, to make that not a reality, and we managed to ride out
you were
very, very tough period.
You were responsible with your money, so you got rewarded for that, which is
absolutely. And I think you have to be, and it's the only time that I've had to make redundancies in my business. So I had to make consultants redundant, and that in all the hardest thing I have ever done in my life, because this was through no fault of their own. This wasn't something they had done wrong, which I find easy to deal with if you've done something. And I had to sit people down who had, families and mortgages and so on, and make them redundant on the basis that I had an obligation to keep the business going and make sure everyone gets paid. And that was the only way I could do it. And that by far is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my career.
What did you do to pivot at that stage?
So our strategy changed very, very quickly. So when times get hard in any industry, the first part of the business that suffers is essentially any of the support side of things, anything that is a cost to the business as opposed to a revenue maker. So you remember I said we set up the business initially as a middle office recruiter. Middle office suffered massively because all of a sudden people didn't want to spend money on that side of things. So we very, very quickly, or fortunately, or through our intellect, discovered we shifted our business to hiring for brokers. So we'd never really recruited for brokers previously. We'd always recruited for banks directly themselves. But brokers always struggled to hire the top talent because the top talent generally went to banks. All of a sudden, the banks weren't hiring anymore. They weren't able to hire anymore. And brokers could hire. So we were able to shift the business around very quickly and move to a model of recruiting front office brokers for brokerages in the UK and the US and Hong Kong, and supply them with staff that they had previously been unable to attract.
So you go from accountancy. It's tough. It's a lot of competition in that space. It's one of the probably the most competitive spaces, I would say. So you're in a position where you know that inside out, but an opportunity's presented itself within the brokerage space. I'm guessing the fees are higher. The it's it's a very fruitful area to recruit in, and it requires maybe more headhunting skills.
It does require more headhunting. Front office is a headhunting area. You have to headhunt if you're going to make placements in that space. The fees at that time were higher, yes, because as I said, we were helping clients attract candidates they couldn't previously attract. So they were taking advantage, if you like, of market conditions. So it helped us massively because our two biggest clients I mentioned previously were BP and JP Morgan. They didn't make another hire from us for another 18 months. So two of our biggest revenue drivers, we made zero revenue from them for 18 months after that. So we were, as I said, very fortunate to be able to flip the business and carry on in just a different space.
So you get out of the recession period and you have you have 4 years of really building it back up before you get acquired. Were you able to get it up to previous numbers, and what was that whole process like?
Yeah, so my intention was never to sell. I'd never, and this comes from lack of planning, which I know better now. I'd never geared the business up or had any intention to sell. But we had an approach from Hamilton Bradshaw, which was James Cahn's private equity firm. And we were first approached in August 2010, I believe, which was only 2 years after the big crash in financial services.
So look, they're looking for undervalued, excellent businesses.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of that, and also it was a little bit of we had an excellent client base, and some great contracts in place, preferred supplier agreements in place, which would also help Hamilton Bradshaw Group expand business and operations as well. So there were several factors involved, if you like. So they made an approach. The negotiations took around a year. Just to give you some idea, this didn't happen overnight.
What type of things go on in those negotiations?
So negotiations is, a lot of people, tend to say to me, "Oh, private equity, they're really hard. They're only interested in money and so forth." And private equity, in essence, is about making money. But the negotiations are generally from both parts. So, they came up with a proposal. My job is then to go through that proposal and decide whether that's acceptable to us or not. And go back to the table with, well, I accept, points 1 and 3, but I want to negotiate 5 other points maybe. So all of this takes time and process. And then even once the whole document is put together, it then has to go through due diligence and the legal teams. And you have to do that side of things to protect yourself. So, these negotiations are fairly standard, I would say. But in essence, both parties are looking for the best deal they can possibly get for themselves. And my job was also to make sure I got the best possible deal for my staff that would be coming along on the journey with us. So there's several different aspects you have to use and look at during this whole process, and it all takes time.
How did it change your operation of your business?
So, look, one of the big things is it freed up cash flow. So Hamilton Bradshaw, James has far deeper pockets than I do, and that always helps a recruitment business, because a recruitment business Achilles' heel generally is cash flow. Every business makes a profit, or I like to think they do. It's when the money comes in that determines how much you can do with that business. So it gave us a much larger platform to be able to grow the business further, attract better talent, and be part of a larger group, which gave us access to more clients, and a network of offices, including international offices. And of course, working with, for me, a big thing was working with James. He's excellent at what he does. He's a celebrity in our world of recruitment. And it was a chance to learn from some other people. I had been running my own business for 7 years at that point, and everyone was learning from me. And I almost missed the fact that who was I learning from, and who was I getting more from. And at Hamilton Bradshaw, what they had was an excellent leadership team, that regularly convened in order to share ideas and then help. And we went through several exercises and training. And all of these things are, you forget you're missing them when you are missing them because your eyes on making placements. And so that was very, very helpful for me and probably crucial for me in my career.
What, if you could identify any things that you did learn in that process? Is there anything that stands out? You know, because you're obviously an entrepreneur who had his own ideas and running it your own way, and you're probably quite systematic in the way that you do it. And then somebody comes in and they have a different process. Was there anything involved that you could kind of just like go into a bit more detail on that you learned?
I think one of the key lessons that I learned, and probably in one of my first meetings with James after we joined Hamilton Bradshaw, was, and it resonates with me every day now because I wish I'd done this with Ingram Mayet when I was running on my own. He said to me, "You have 100% control over your costs. You do not have 100% control over your revenue. So on revenue, you're reliant on so many other aspects, and you're reliant on clients and candidates and so forth. But your cost, you have total control over. So and I don't think I was the only guilty one, and I don't think I'm the only owner of a recruitment agency that was guilty of it. When cash was coming in, and the times were good, there wasn't much element of cost control that I had in the business. Everybody had a very good time. And I suppose that's a key lesson that I learned from him about any business, quite frankly. That's not a recruitment business lesson, but you can control your costs, and you should control your costs because, every penny spent is another penny you have to earn. And that's the biggest lesson I learned from him.
And tell me, was that when you went through a rebranding period?
Yes, we did. So we rebranded as HBIM. So we were Ingram Mayet, or IM before. We became Hamilton Bradshaw Ingram Mayet. So there was a rebranding exercise, but that's where Hamilton Bradshaw were very good. We had everyone on site effectively, and I was fortunate. I was based at head office at Grosvenor Street. We had all the tools available to us in order to make whatever changes we needed very, very quickly. And it was all done in-house because we had the capability there in-house, which, of course, as a small recruitment business, is very hard for you to have in-house. You normally have to go searching for it. So we were very fortunate to have the expertise around.
And tell me, has that evolved into Westbourne Partners, or is that a separate business that you've subsequently set up?
So Westbourne Partners is a totally different business. So I exited. So I carried on working, and I exited the business about 2.5 years ago when I was able to, and it was all done very well, and I enjoyed my time there.
Because when you sell a business like that, they usually expect you to be involved in the business for a period of time.
Yes, you have a lock-in period. So if you don't complete your lock-in period, there are financial penalties, if you like, for not doing that. But that wasn't the reason I completed mine. I did it because I was actually enjoying it, and it was very fruitful times for me. But then all good things come to an end at some point, and our agreement ended at the end of 2015. So
fantastic. So it's really exciting time for you then in 2015. The market's good. You've obviously made a few pound on selling the business. You've all the lessons learned that you gained for yourself, and then you have the big business processes that the investors put into you. So you're really ready to set up this business. How did you structure it different? What type of things did you consider this time compared to the first time that you set up?
So just to talk you through the journey, and Westbourne was a going business when I joined it. So Westbourne's been around since 2009. Which is set up by ex-S3 recruiters, which I know there's a number of businesses set up by ex-S3 recruiters. I think that there's a lot of them in the market. But I had some time out, and I really wanted to take some time out because I'd been working for a long, long time, and running your own business carries a lot of pressures that you don't actually realize until you don't have those pressures anymore. So I took what I believe was deserved time out of the time, and And I came back a little bit earlier than I was anticipating. And the only reason I really came back to work when I did was I had a lot of pressure from some of my previous clients that I'd worked with, especially more in the Middle East than anywhere else, of come on, you get back to work now, Mo. We need you. You promised delivery on a number of projects, and we want you to do. We see them through. So then I had a choice, which
That's a
was,
nice problem to have.
Yeah, it was a great problem to have, and I remember I was sitting on a beach in Mexico when they were phoning me, and it was hard to get off that bed on the beach, which was amazing. Which I'm heading off to again very shortly, so I'm looking forward to that. But
Lovely.
so I had two choices at that point. I could start all over again, start new, start a totally new business, and go again, or do I join a going business? So I assessed both opportunities, and look, I was a young man when I started Ingram Mayet. I was full of energy. I was going to prove the world wrong. I was going to do things differently. My drivers were very, very different. And in essence, I wanted to make a lot of money at that point. That was my big driver for setting up a business. I didn't have the same drivers this time around. Touch wood, I've had a very fortunate career, and I've been very, very lucky, and recruitment has paid me huge dividends, which has been great. But I met up with the founders of Westbourne Partners, had a quick conversation about what I'm looking to do, what they have already, and what they're looking to do. And they had some very exciting growth plans over here. So I decided I would come across to Westbourne and join the business just over 2 years ago, and not look back since then.
And what's your remit within that business? It must be hard fitting somebody like you into a business.
It is and it isn't, and I suppose it depends on which business it is and what the business is looking to do. So Westbourne, we're very fortunate in terms of we have one of our partners has done all the things that I didn't do at Ingram Mayet, which is apply some cost control, which is great to see in a business. Quite honestly, I'm very happy to see it, and
that'll be the S3 factor.
Yeah, absolutely, and it works because it basically means we're in a very, very fortunate position in terms of money in the bank and what we can do with that money. So my remit is twofold, if you like. I look after what we have as the international banking and finance team, and everyone in Westbourne Partners is a hands-on recruiter. Everyone, there is nobody who isn't,
including yourself,
including myself. So I have some clients
I love to hear
that want to work with me, but I have a great delivery team that helps me to deliver to those. So my main client base is out in the Middle East, which is in Qatar, Bahrain, and the UAE. We work with the largest bank in each of those countries, and we recruit across the globe for these banks. So we don't just recruit in the Middle East for them. We recruit for them in London, in Paris, in Switzerland, as far across as Indonesia, Hong Kong, Singapore. So my job, in essence, is to manage those client relationships. I travel on average about once a month over across to the Middle East to see these clients. And that part of it is going very, very well. So, we've just recently added into that team somebody who's just returned from Hong Kong to make sure we've got coverage out in APAC as well. So that, if you like, is my 9-to-5 day job. And that's the part I love doing the most because I make placements, and that's what we do, right, as recruiters.
So the business that you're in, it looks like it's high-end fintech, quantitative trading, some new technology stuff. And I'm guessing that there's quite a modern approach. So your recruiters are based out of London, working roles all over the world. How does that work from a management standpoint? How do you make sure that that they're on top of it and they know their clients enough? And how does that work?
So when I joined, we only had the London office, and we had 5 different areas of recruitment that we recruit into. So very specialist areas. So we have the international banking and finance team, which I run, as I've mentioned to you. Mm-hmm. We have a quant trading recruitment business, which predominantly recruits for hedge funds over in the US. So that'll be in New York, Chicago. And off the back of the quant trading business, so we had somebody who worked in that team who 3 years ago put his hand up and said, I want to start up an artificial intelligence recruitment division. So I believe we were one of the first entrants into the AI market.
Wow.
And Sammy now does very, very well for us and has built a team around him. And they predominantly recruit in the US as well, but they do some work in Europe as well. Then we have a technology recruitment business, which is what the business was founded on back in 2009. And our technology recruitment division focuses primarily in the UK. And then we have a fintech specialist recruitment division, which was based in London when I joined, but predominantly covered, or mainly just covered, the US and a little bit of South America. And we moved that business actually over to the US. So we launched our first New York office last year, at the beginning of 2017. So Richard, who had been with the business for a while, moved out there and is now leading the Americas operations. And he has built out a team in New York, which services New York, but also some of the other fintech hubs across the US.
Like Atlanta and Chicago. And
yes, absolutely. And also does quite a lot of work down in South America and Brazil, which is off the back of US clients who are based down there.
Oh, that's interesting.
And the partners work there. And off the back of that, we launched the Dallas office earlier this year.
Wow.
So we've been expanding. We've been expanding. Our biggest holdback on expanding actually is finding the right talent.
How come I haven't made any money off you? That's what I want to know.
Well, I'm hoping. I would like to pay you lots of money to help us. So we're a very, very open and forward-thinking business. So, and that's my job, is to grow this business out, and that could be either through hiring new talent and bringing them into the business, and that could be into any one of our 5 individual specific areas that we recruit into already. Or it could be somebody coming to the table with, actually, I'd like to do, I don't know, cybersecurity recruitment. And this is what I do, this is how I do it. And we'd help them, launch their own division and make that work. So we can have a look at it from that side. Or we are, and as I said, we're very fortunate because we're very well run, that, we're in the market. If we see a business to acquire, then we're very much in the market for that as well. And so those are the 2 different ways we think we can grow the business even further.
Yeah, and the US market's fascinating right now. I mean, everybody seems to be setting up. How are you finding the Dallas market? And are you covering a whole region from there?
It's difficult to cover a whole region in the US from anywhere because it's simply so big. But the market, and from what I hear from our US guys, and they were over only last month for our mid-year review, is the markets are very, very good. As long as you can find the right people, there are lots of jobs. And I think a lot of the guys in the US seem to, I don't know what the US model used to be like in recruitment, but it used to be different apparently. And they're all very much in favor of working the way we do, I suppose. That's why you're seeing
is that 360 headhunting?
360 headhunting, and I think that's why you're seeing a larger movement of people from here going to the US in recruitment markets, whereas historically those people, I suppose, used to head more towards Australia, was the way it tended to go. But the US is a very, very buoyant market now, and it's there for anyone who wants to do well. There is a huge opportunity out there.
Yeah, my business has swung from Australia to the US massively. We still do a bit in Australia, but they changed the visa laws and they've made it really hard to sponsor somebody. And America, well, all you have to do is look at the investment that the UK recruitment companies are putting in, and you can just see it is the land of opportunity right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're keen to continue growing that business. We're likely to look at something West Coast, which is the natural direction for us to go in. Maybe something in Chicago, And we're also open. We're thinking we might head and open an office down in South America, in Brazil. So they're new options we can look at. And as I said, that might be through hiring the right talent. It could be through acquiring a business that's already set up there.
Are there any challenges that you have faced with outside of like finding staff in America? Is there any key business stuff that you had to overcome when you first got there, or has it just been plain sailing?
Oh no! I wish it was plain sailing. And our chief operating officer will swear to this more than I will, I suppose. But America comes with its own laws, and not only does America come with its own laws, each state comes with its own laws. So, going through all of the legal side of things and getting the setup right to make sure we're fully compliant, and getting the visas in place and the sponsorships in place actually is a lot of hard work. I would say it's been more than worth it for us, absolutely, but by no means is it easy to set up a business in the US.
And tell me, in your view, what makes a great recruiter in a modern firm now?
I think a great recruiter, I think, varies company to company and person to person. But I've always found the hungry recruiters, the ones who want to achieve more, do more, and a little bit contrary to everyone else. And this, again, a lesson I learned very early in my career. Everyone tends to think recruiters are the people who speak the most or speak the best way. I've found the best recruiters to be the people that listen the most, which most people don't believe when I tell them about recruitment consultants. So I think the people that listen and learn and absorb and learn from everyone around them are the best recruiters that I come across.
Yeah, it's kind of like the boxer waiting for that punch, isn't it?
Yeah. Rather than throwing lots and lots of punches and hoping one of them hits, it's being tactical about it. And as I said, a lot of people think people that talk a lot make good recruiters, but the problem is they talk so much they miss what the client's saying and what your colleagues are saying. And actually, if I look around the room here at Westbourne, there's some amazing talent here, and I learn from them every day, regardless of whether they've been doing this job for a month or 18 years like myself. The best things I learn every day are from people around me.
Well, Mo, it's been great speaking to you, and thank you so much for coming in and doing this just off a LinkedIn message, which is phenomenal, brilliant. Just really ballsy on your behalf. No prep, no nothing. Just come in, tell it how it is. Just one last thing: if somebody wants to reach out to you, who should reach out to you first, and how can they find you?
I suppose they can find me on LinkedIn.
There we go.
My profile is up there. I'm sure my contact details are on there. Or just give me a call at Westbourne Partners. I'm happy to receive a call, and I'm open to speaking to anybody in the recruitment world that, as I said, either sits in our space already and thinks they might do better here, or something new, and they've got an idea they want to pitch and they're not sure how to do it. Look, there are no bad ideas. I'd love to hear any of them. So if anyone is interested in that, I would be more than happy to hear from them.
All right, Mo. Thanks so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for your time, Doctor.
Fantastic guest. Big thanks to Mo for coming on the podcast. Really enjoyed hearing how he founded his company, what they specialized in, how they pivoted, how they survived the recession, how he got lucky he didn't invest in an office in Dubai. I've heard other people who have, and it's gone under. So somebody is looking down on Mo for sure. And how he then got acquired and went through that whole process. I thought that was really interesting. And then he's on a beach in Mexico and decides to get back in the saddle and work for somebody again. Really good guest. We'll be back tomorrow with another guest, another senior guest, I think. And we might actually have two guests tomorrow. So it could be a busy day tomorrow. All right. As ever, thank you so much for listening. And yeah, if you're getting any value from this, just let me know. Hit me up. I'm always on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for all the 5-star reviews on iTunes. It really means the world. And yeah, we'll just keep them coming. Take care. God bless. See you tomorrow.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.